Hi. If you didn't go out and get your cup today, get your cup. I think they're giving out a free cup. Starbucks. I don't know if there's supplies left, but it's been going on all day. Anyways, hi. Hope you guys are doing good. I wanted today to touch in a little bit on depression. It's something that has haunted me for years and years and years. Something that I allowed to rule my life for so many years that today I no longer suffer from. And I know that there are people who are clinically depressed who need things to get through. I'm not a doctor, and I'm not saying that people shouldn't take medicine, and I'm not even going there. But to share my story, I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder, and diagnosed with seasonal depression quite a few years ago. For the longest time, they assumed that it was based on, the diagnosis was depression because of the things that I had experienced. I have other beliefs today, and that's totally irrelevant. But the depression in my life was definitely prevalent. It was definitely present. There were days I couldn't get out of bed. There were days that my house was so disgusting I wouldn't let anybody come in. I remember my brother used to make comments about how all I needed in my bedroom was a refrigerator and a toilet, and then I would never leave my room because my room was my safe place. It was my place. I mean, I worked from home. I did everything in my room. I didn't leave my room unless I absolutely had to, and that was to go to the bathroom or to get something to eat or drink. I would order food and have somebody else get it at the door and bring it to my room. I remember, seasons where it was hard to get into the shower, where it was hard to put on a face, do my hair. It could be days, it could be a week. It just depended on what was going on that season. There were times when I just remember my house being so disgusting, so overwhelming. Every room I would walk into would just be so gross that I didn't even want to be in there. So I would just go back to my room, where I could control the space and the things that were in it. What I've learned about depression over the years has been that it doesn't rule me today. It's not my boss. It doesn't tell me what I'm going to do and when I'm going to do it or how I'm going to do it. I tell depression what I'm going to do. And it's taken a long time to get to this place. I spent years, I think 7 years in therapy, dealing with the things that I struggled from with PTSD. There was a lot of heartbreak in my world, a lot of family heartbreak, emotional heartbreak, relational heartbreak with boyfriends and guys, and a heartbreak with losing custody of my son temporarily, fighting for custody of him for 2 years in court, having my identity stolen by my kid's dad. I mean, just the list went on and on and on and on and on, to the point that I didn't want to. Why trust anybody? Why get out of my house and leave my safe space when I could just be in my room and do what I was doing? The internet was starting at that time. We were all getting computers at home, and the internet made it worse for me. truthfully. I stayed, it made it really easy for me to stay in my room because I was able to work from home. I was going to school from home, and I was, depressed. So I was in my room, in my bed. And I know I would roll out of bed, once between like 12 and 2 in the afternoon, and I was up until 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. And that's just how my life went. I don't miss those days. Not even a little bit. And I feel for anybody that's experiencing or going through a current wave of depression or allowing it to rule you. I will say this. Initially speaking, I had to take antidepressants. And I remember the first time I was given this prescription, somebody said to me, "Oh, you finally got cuckoo pills." And I was so mad at that statement that I threw the pills away, because I was like, I'm not taking these. I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy. So I don't need to take cuckoo pills. I mean, it was just something that was so annoying to me that they even said that I wouldn't take anything at all because of the stigma or what it would look like for somebody suffering from depression. So I wouldn't take the medication. I refused, and decided to swirl around in my mind for another 2 years before I went around that route again. And this time with counseling, my counselor said, I think that maybe a mild antidepressant would help through this process, and she suggested that I try it. If I didn't like it after a month, we would reevaluate that and go from there. So I committed to 1 month, and I didn't tell anybody. And I remember I would get really, really, really angry. I remember being really, really angry a lot about, not during the medication time, but prior to the medication time, being really angry. I could go from hot to cold in a second. I'd be, angry in one moment and bawling my eyes out the next. And it was like the two extremes all the time. And you didn't really know what you were going to get with me. And I was either really mad or really sad, and very rarely was it somewhere in between. So they tested me for bipolar disorder. They tested me for all these other different things because of that. But the PTSD was what was apparently causing those range of emotions. So, because I was unable to control my emotions. So, anywho, put me on a mild antidepressant, and I was on it for 2 years. And I remember the first time something huge happened in my house, and my kids were expecting me to just skyrocket. Anger, they were waiting for it. And I know my son kind of came in like, "Mom, I want to tell you something, I think they broke something." And he was like, "It's broken, I don't really know." And he was like waiting for something to fly. And I was like, "Man, that sucks. It's okay, I guess we'll get another one," type of thing. And he was like, "Are you okay, Mom?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Are you sure?" I said, "I'm good." And he was like, I'll pay for it. That's fine." And I remember him just like walking away like, "What the heck? Like, who is that? Like, something's wrong with her." And it made me feel horrible. It made me feel like, I guess my mind was capable of seeing it from a different perspective on that day. And I remember feeling like my son is waiting for me to explode, because that's my common and typical reaction. And that didn't feel good. As a mom, it didn't make me feel good to think the people closest to me are waiting for me to erupt like a volcano. And I'm not erupting like a volcano right now. Which meant that how I was responding to things wasn't normal. And I remember thinking, okay, well, I like the way that I responded. I'm less upset and irritable. And it's just things. It's just something. It's just a piece. It's just an object. It can easily be replaced. No big deal, right? So I remember going back to therapy and being like, I've had this real issue with taking pills and thinking it was wrong. And in my mind, I've always believed that God can heal me from anything. And so why not depression, right? And it's not that I don't believe that he can help you with depression, because I do. But I think for me personally, I needed to see things for a while until I could trust him enough to carry me further, right? So I know that I went a good 2 years that I was on the medication until I started realizing, I know what normal looks like now, and I can kind of balance my emotions good. Talked to my doctor, they agreed. They removed me from the medication and kind of watched me just to see how things would go and things would happen. And I had learned how to react to things. I think it was a learned trait, action, I don't know, something I had to learn. Behavior, there you go, it's a learned behavior at that point. So I know that I figured it out and got used to it, could kind of gauge my response to life and things, and things continued to go on, and life continued to happen, and I continued to realize, okay, this is doable, I can do this. And then life was good for a while, and then I remember hitting my first big deal again, and it was like an elephant sitting on my chest again, and here comes depression knocking on my door. And what do I do with that this time? Because now I'm not medicated. And I remember thinking that time, okay, you know what? I've done this before. I've gotten better. I can do this again. And really going through spiritually into things like, okay, I know that God is for me and not against me, so I can do this. He says I'm, a survivor. I'm not a victim. I'm an overcomer. I'm not, gonna fail. He's if God's for you, who can be against you, right? So if he's for me, then he's going to propel me into the next chapter, and he's going to push me forward and continue to move my life ahead and continue to just help me get better and better and better. So I know there were days that I would regurgitate these things. I would say to myself constantly, like, you can do this. With all things, you can do anything with him. So just stick with him. Just stick with him. Just keep going. And maybe it was by the hour. Maybe it was by the minute. It just depended on the situation. But I know that I've now been off of antidepressants since 2012. Yeah. And so it's been 7 years. And I've had time to obviously live. Life has happened. Not naive to depression by any means. I suffered for several years, several years, a good decade plus, living in that whirlwind. And now I don't turn to medication, I turn to God. And I'm not saying that turning to medication is wrong, because I absolutely used it. I absolutely had to at that time. It was something that I don't think I would have even known how to do without that at that time. But today, it's not necessary, because I have a God who's greater, and I know that I have a God that's greater, and I know that I can turn to him at any given point in time, and that he will make my path straight. I know that anything that I'm struggling with, or anything I'm mulling over, or the anxiety that starts to come, and I just start to the wheels in my head tend to spin and spin and spin and spin for like 45 days straight, and nonstop, 24 hours a day, while I'm awake, while I'm asleep, while I'm doing there and there and everywhere, my wheels are spinning. And so I have had to learn how to say, I'm getting off of this train. I'm going to take a step off. I'm going to do something else instead of getting caught up in that. I definitely have struggled with this for so long that I know everybody's situation is different, and everybody's got to deal with things their own way. I highly recommend therapy for anybody and everybody who is struggling with something. And if you can't get into therapy, at the very least, like, get into like some type of CR or NA or Celebrate Recovery or whatever, as Alcoholics Anonymous, or what do they call that one? Al-Anon, for people who aren't addicted to things but have family. I know I was a adult child of an addict, and I definitely benefited from those groups at times as well. I'm not saying that that's for everybody or that that's something that they need to do, but I know that there are characteristics of those things that tend to like filter in, and they kind of web and flow into each other, and they build on top of each other. And sometimes it's just this and sometimes it's just that. But if you need a crutch and you need a group or a community to stand with you, then these are all great tools to use for that, that are free, and all you got to do is just show up. Counseling is amazing. I recommend anybody and everybody get like a therapist that they adore, somebody that they can trust, somebody that they can, really lean on. I know when I get back to LA, I am all over my girl. I miss her. I physically miss my therapist. I adore her. Not because of something I need her to do for me, but because the relationship that I have is somebody I can trust. I can say things to. They can't tell my business. I can keep it private. I love that idea. I can cry. I can, feel stupid and say my dumb things and get the dumb stuff out. And then she'll sit back and look at me and be like, "Are you done? Do you feel better now?" And it was like, I don't like that. But I tend to be the type of person that a lot of people don't challenge. People don't challenge me, unfortunately. I want people to challenge me. I'm begging you. Give me something back. Give me a little bit of grit back. Call me out on my stuff if I'm doing something that's wrong. Say, "Hey, you know what, T, can I talk to you for a minute? You did this, you did that." Because that's what my therapist has done for me all of these years, because my friends weren't. My friends weren't doing that. I have a couple of friends that, when I take the time to have conversations with them, would say whatever, but I didn't always trust that they were giving me the best option out there, or what was best for me. And I needed somebody to give me ideas and kind of rub things off of, like, I'd run things out and they would run it back, and just kind of figure it out so that things, till it made sense to me. And for me, that was a therapist. It was the safe place for me. But yeah, I definitely, hi Greg, I'm happy you're here. I really suffered with depression over the years for all of the things that happened and the things that I saw. And so maybe my ways don't work for everybody, and I, wouldn't expect that they would, but maybe they will. And it's just something to look into. I don't want anybody to feel ashamed of living life and having hardships or times that they have struggled with stuff that they've had to reach out and go to other methods to get through it. Hello, you're human. Give yourself some grace. And that's something that I think I've definitely learned over the years, is that giving myself grace and making it okay for me to not be okay has been something that has given me so much power. I don't have to know everything all of the time. I don't have to be perfect all of the time. I don't have to be looking a certain way or having all my eggs and ducks in a row perfect all the time. I'm not perfect. I am human. I make freaking total mess ups, big ones, and it's okay. It's okay, because I'm learning. And that's the thing that I think most people need to do, is extend themselves some grace and be okay to not be okay. By not being okay and saying, "Hey, you know what, right now I'm having a really hard time. I'm not getting through this in the right way and I need a little bit of help." There's nothing wrong with saying I need help. Nothing. Like, absolutely nothing. I was raised in an era where Black people do not go to counseling. Okay, they just don't. And it's sad, because I think that we've cut ourselves off from opening ourselves up to stuff and letting stuff go. My therapist said, I remember one time she said, "You've had so many things happen in your life that like in the trauma and in the moment when something crazy happens, it's like you know, when you move out of a house really quick, or you move somewhere real quick and you just shove everything into a bag and then it just like ends up in the corner somewhere. Well, like eventually you move, right, and you're going through the stuff and you have to pull the stuff out, and there's maybe food and clothes and like some glass materials or other stuff got in there, and it starts to smell because food is rotting, right? Well, if you think about food rotting as the crap that you went through, it's going to smell eventually. It's got to come out. It can't just be stuffed into a bag in a corner and ignored. The bag is eventually going to get holes. It's going to start spilling out. It's going to smell. It's going to be gross. And that's what happens with our life. So all therapy is you taking that bag out of the corner, washing the clothes that are in there, evaluating them. Hey, is this keepable or something I want? Should I donate it? Should I keep it? Repackaging it, folding it up nicely, and compartmentalizing all the stuff that you've been through and deciding, is this something I want to take with me further in the future, or something I want to set aside and let go of? And honestly, 90% of the stuff that I've been through, I set it aside and let it go because it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant to the future that I know God's called me to do. So that's just where I'm at, and I hope that somebody else understands that it's okay to not be okay. If you need help, seek help. It's okay to reach out. It's okay to say, hey, I've got a moment. I need to work through this. There's a situation I need to work through. That's okay too. And give yourself grace. I hope you guys are having a great day. I will check in with you tomorrow. But today, I'm done because I gotta go. I'm gonna get on the freeway. I got a friend I gotta go see. No, for real. Have a good day. Love you. Bye.